Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we discuss horror and science fiction movies and the key elements that make those movies memorable and stand out amongst the vast sea of horror and science fiction movies. I'm with my friend David Horton. Hey, David, how are you?
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well is good.
The sun is out. It has rained for a week, and it is, I didn't get finished with my arc, but my house is still here, so.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I understand you just flew back in town.
I did. More, looking for the work. Got to go where the work is. So, yeah, I traveled a lot. But, yeah, just flew back, but glad to be podcasting again and back doing this. I guess my little tidbit to kick us off or to say, what have you been doing genre-wise is, and it's pseudo-genre, I guess. It's a genre all its own. But I watched Joker, the Joaquin Phoenix decided to win an Oscar for doing the Joker movie that's out. Have you seen that?
I have not, but I think it's kind of wild that two people playing that part have won Oscars now.
Did Heath win for that? Because it had to be posthumously, though, right? I guess.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, okay. Well, I will say to all of our other genre or geek brothers out there that I apologize in advance, but I hated this movie. I really didn't like it at all. I thought, because you and I both come from an acting background anyway and all of that, but I found it really super self-indulgent. I didn't like the story.
Won. Sorry to interrupt you, but he won for supporting. But it was for the Joker.
Heath Ledger did.
Heath Ledger.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Which is well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Because that performance of Joker is probably one of the best. It's so interesting. These are like diametrical opposed. I think Ledger's Joker is probably one of the best acting performances I've ever seen on film. I think it's phenomenally well done, the choices he's made. I think we've even talked about in the podcast before. But the Joaquin Phoenix one is the exact opposite. It's self-indulgent, it's slow, it's boring, it really goes nowhere. The story doesn't go anywhere. I mean, if one of the best scenes, even in talking with other people who like it, and they go, oh, I just love the scene with Batman's parents. And I'm going, okay, that's the last 3 minutes of the frickin' movie. Seriously, that's your favorite scene in the movie? It's terrible, Tim. Watch it and see what you think, but I was not impressed at all. I was going...
Honestly, I've only seen a couple of people that are actually praising it. Most of the things I've read about it have said this movie's terrible. And the podcasts that I listen to, in particular, Derek and Romaine, were like, how in the hell did this get nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah, or win. Could not believe he won. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
But wasn't the picture nominated too?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really say much because I haven't seen it. But, I mean, that says a lot right there. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but if you get a chance, watch it and then let me know what you think. But I was deeply unimpressed.
Yeah, and don't let us ostracize you. If you do like it, let us know why, because maybe we're missing something here. So,
yeah, please tell me where I've erred in my judgment here. So there you go. What about you? What have you been doing? Have you done? Hopefully, you've done something more fun than live through the Joker.
Well, I don't know that it's more fun, and I'm not going to talk about Outsider again because both of us are obsessed with that show and are probably going to do a side podcast on it. But I will say that I guess because it's a new year, I've been reflecting a lot on mortality, and a lot of great people have been dying here lately. And the one that struck me the most is Terry Jones of Monty Python died.
Yeah. Yep.
And I just think back to how long we have been obsessed fans of that comedy troupe and their short but amazing catalog of films and television shows. So I've been watching some old Monty Python best ofs and things on television.
Oh, some like flying circus stuff. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's several different shows out there now that are just culminations or little things people have put together. Remember how they used to do those Saturday Night Lives, Best of John Belushi and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Netflix has one now that's like Best of John Cleese, and what it is they actually host the episode. The one with John Cleese is really funny because he's basically in character the whole time he's hosting it, and he's like a complete ass. But anyway, so I've been watching those. For any of you that don't know out there, Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam were pretty much the director part of Monty Python.
Yeah.
They were also part of the ensemble, but they also directed the films. I get confused as to which one directed which. But Terry Jones is... The line that sticks with me is, "Hey, Dennis, there's some lovely filth over here."
Yeah, there's some lovely filth down here. Oh, no. Yeah, that was sad. He was very talented, very good. I thought he to me, he and Cleese were probably the two most memorable characters. I think Palin gets a lot of recognition, but Palin basically does the same three types of characters in everything, whereas Cleese and Jones, I think, really just did crazy out there people, I think. Mm-hmm. So...
Cleese has probably always been my favorite, and I used to say Eric Idle was my least favorite, but now that I watch them, I like them all so much that I've kind of got to where I can appreciate each and every one of them, even Eric Idle.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
And John and Graham Chapman. God Almighty, he's hilarious. He played a great straight man, too.
Yeah. And Jones was also one of their principal writers, with Cleese and Idle and all them. And he actually wrote Holy Grail, which is my favorite of all the Python movies. So, there are those who call me Tim.
We've come for your liver. But I'm using it.
I'm sorry, you did sign this release, right?
This organ donor release form. But I'm using it. Let's not fall down that rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh, we could do. Just a harmless little bunny, yeah.
It's got nasty big pointy teeth.
Pointy teeth. Okay, well, let's go on to. And now for something completely different. I'm excited about this week's movie because I said for quite a few years that it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I totally throw David the critic out the window when I watch this movie because so much of it makes just literally no sense whatsoever. But it works for me on so many levels. There's so many elements of this movie that I really like. So I think I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, do you want me to introduce the subject matter and let you do a brief synopsis of what we're going to talk about?
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, we are in science fiction territory this week, and we're going to discuss a little film that came out in 1997, directed by Luc Besson. It is called The Fifth Element.
Yes. For those of you who haven't seen it, go watch it right now. It's easy to find. It's on a lot of different mediums and platforms, and most times you'll find it on television in reruns somewhere, just if you walk through the living room and look through the channels. But it is some people would even call it a semi-classic science fiction story from the 90s. It stars Bruce Willis, Gary Oldman, Milla Jovovich, Ian Holm. But basically the story is set in the 23rd century. And basically evil has come. Every 5,000 years, evil in some form, and this time it's the form of a planet, appears in the galaxy and is wreaking havoc and doom and bringing doom and gloom to the universe. And the only thing that can stop the evil, the ultimate evil, is the fifth element. And the story of the movie is a lonely taxi driver in New York who is thrown into this story of trying to find the fifth element and then use the fifth element to prevent evil from taking over the galaxy and especially destroying the Earth. And he is fought on his way by evil alien races, the Mangalores, and also an evil imperialistic, greedy capitalist named Zorg, which is such a great little science fiction name. I mean, I remember there was an old PC game called Zorg, and it had like 3 or 4 different variations. But you had it. But anyway, Korben Dallas, who is the character played by Bruce Willis, has to go through all these adventures all over the galaxy to try to fight this evil. And he's accompanied by the very attractive Leeloo, who is played by Milla Jovovich, who, spoiler alert, we find out at the end actually is the fifth element, and how to use her is part of the big mystery and secret at the end. What did you think about this film, Tim? I've said I liked it. What do you think? Had you seen it before?
I'm pretty sure I watched it on DVD in the 90s.
Okay.
Shortly, like after it was released, probably, because I was somewhat obsessed with Bruce, and I watched a lot of his films, even the bad ones. Hudson Hawk, anybody?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I don't dislike this movie. I do remember the first time I saw it. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or what, but I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" I mean, there is a lot of shit going on in this movie. I decided to, I wanted to see it again since we were doing the podcast. And as I was watching it, you have to let go. You can't, look for logic in some of this film for sure. But I started seeing elements of other science fiction movies, which is what this podcast is about, finding the connections between the movies. And I started saying, wow, whoever this Besson is, I mean, obviously he's a visionary because of the way the film is shot and looked. But I think he's also somewhat of a student, or at least picking up on some stuff somehow organically from other films. And lots of them are older films, too.
Oh, I'm curious to see what keys you have. That's interesting. That's neat.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, and you can watch Jovovich, or what, I can't pronounce her name, and I'll watch Bruce run around all the time. I got to watch him read, fold laundry or whatever. So.
And he's great in this. He is great in this movie. I think he is. It's a little bit of Moonlighting, a little bit of Die Hard. It's
a lot of Die Hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's having fun, and all of them seem to have fun. I mean, Ian Holm seems to have fun. Even who's that? The actor that Wynn hates, Brian James, who plays the general in it. He's obviously having a good time with it. It is parts of it are humorous, parts of it are, but I guess I would describe this movie as extremely visionary. It's It reminds me of I guess a key for me is definitely heavy metal. It reminds me not only of heavy metal, a live action heavy metal, the movie, but also heavy metal, the graphic novel. The whole, it just keeps throwing stuff at you, from design of weapons to costume design to strange characters. Chris Tucker's I can't remember what's his name. Chris Tucker plays
Ruby Rhod.
Yeah, Ruby Rhod, who is extremely memorable to a lot of people, and Leeloo alone, the costume, Leeloo's costume for most of the movie is such a cosplayer's thing. I mean, I have literally been to events before and seen women with just white duct tape, and that's all they're wearing is white duct tape.
I'm sure
trying
that
to be Leeloo
turns a few heads.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nothing wrong with some strategic duct tape there. But well, what's the best way to assail this project? I mean, we both kind of like it, but do we want to talk about?
Well, what are some of the? I was going to say, let's go into the background a little bit. I've got a little bit of background info. I read that Besson started writing this script when he was 16 years old, and yet it didn't get filmed until he was 38. So obviously he had been working on this story for a very, very long time.
Yeah, he's, I knew Besson just because of The Professional. Leon, the Professional, because he's before this he had basically done like gangster movies and more action oriented.
Didn't he do the Transporter series with Jason Statham? Yeah, because I like those movies. I like some. Those are guilty pleasures for me. Some of those Jason Statham movies, for sure.
Well, and he brings a very European style to the way he tells the story and his vision and everything else. But he had always wanted to do two films. This one, which he had written when he was in high school, and also an adaptation of Valerian, which was a graphic novel or a series of graphic novels, I think, written by this French designer that I can't pronounce his name. But he ended up just a few years ago doing Valerian. Yeah. He ended up just a few years ago doing Valerian and doing a version of it. And it's a guilty pleasure of mine, too. It's not great. It's nowhere near as good as Fifth Element. But it is a pretty interesting science fiction story. But yeah, I had heard that he had always wanted to do this for years and years.
Yeah, and I read that it was originally intended to be a trilogy, and then he condensed it into one movie, which is why I probably am why I feel that there's a lot going on in this movie. He kind of smashed three movies into one, I guess. I also read that at one point, and I know this is in my notes, but I don't see it here, they wanted him to turn this into a property, like a Universal thing, like like Marvel's universe, MCU or whatever.
Yeah.
And he didn't, which is, I mean, at the time, I guess it wasn't as popular as it is now, but just think of how much money he would be making now if it had done that and been successful.
Well, the effects were done by a relatively new company. I think it was Digital Domain that did the effects, and they're great. They do an incredible job all the way through this. I mean, they make Coruscant look better than Coruscant does, in Star Wars movies, with all the air cars and everything else. But all the effects, the planetary effects, the explosions, there's a lot of cool effects in this movie.
Yeah, I like that it's also, and he says this, that it's somewhat of a comedy. And, a lot of futuristic science fiction movies are not. They're either dystopian, or they're serious, or they're thrillers. And his quote I read from him was that the future is not dark and dangerous. The future is very funny. which is
Yeah.
appropriately enough a Monty Python kind of view or a Hitchhiker's Guide kind of view, for lack of a different British source. I like that he made the hero a cab driver. He did that in honor of his father, because his father was a cab driver.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool. But as far as background info, I read also somewhere that him and Gary Oldman are friends, and that Gary Oldman did this because he owed him one or something. Did you know this?
Yeah, Gary Oldman had, they had been in, he had used him in Leon, of course, because he's the villain in Leon.
Okay.
And I think Oldman was doing a movie or something like that, and Besson helped finance it, or got him financing, or hooked him up with a producer, or something like that. So he agreed to do the movie. But I've also heard that he doesn't like his performance in this movie.
Yeah, I heard that
really
too.
Like it, yeah.
Yeah, I heard he was not a fan of it.
Which is crazy because, I guess I could understand that because it is so out there. It is such a caricature. The accent and the scene, the way he does certain scenes and everything is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. So I could understand him thinking that, but it's still funny.
Yeah.
You said it's a comedy, and I always remember Multipass. Korben Dallas, Multipass. I've got that in my notes for background, that the language, the divine language that they speak, or what's called divine language, they actually made up. That's a real language that they spoke. I thought that was wild.
Which I think is kind of funny, because apparently they became fluent in it and could communicate with each other. That's Milla and Luc. Luc. And I read, this is just some side gossip, that Luc was married to Mai Wen, the opera singer in the movie at the time. But him and Jovovich got married 6 months later. So what were they talking about in that language that no one else understood? Because,
it was all about
he left
costume
his wife
fittings.
for her.
Yeah.
That's it. It's about duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape. That's it.
So that's really all I had as far as background. Did you have anything
Well, what
else?
about casting? You liked Bruce in this, but do you think he was the best choice? I'm sure you do, but could you picture anybody else in that, or did they picture anybody else?
Because of the comic element, I thought he was well chosen, because he can do comedy. I mean, he did comedy on television before he ever moved on to movies. But other actors can. Mel Gibson was actually a selection as well, and he does comedy pretty well. You got to take away the stigma of everything that's gone on in the last decade or two with him. But back in the day, I think Mel Gibson could have probably done it. Another choice for Dallas was somebody I don't know as well, Jean Reno, which I think he was maybe in another Luc Besson movie because he's French.
I do not know what? That name.
Yeah, he looks. I can see his face right now. I know exactly who he is. I can't tell you what movies he's in. Yeah, people. Okay. I will put a link in the show notes. But Jean Reno, if you saw him, you'd know exactly who I'm talking about. But I don't know how well he plays comedy. I've only seen him in serious things. So
okay.
Emperor or whatever, Zorg, Gary Oldman. Like I said earlier, he took the part without reading the script because he was friends with Besson and owed him one. I wonder how he felt after he read it. I don't see or have any other information about the Cornelius part, which was Ian Holm. And who wants to replace Ian Holm anyway? He's great.
Never. He's always great in everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting, this is just a side note of trivia, that he's in another science fiction movie with somebody named Dallas. Alien.
That's a great one. I love that.
Yeah. Leeloo, who is played by that lady, I can't pronounce her name, Milla Jovovich. Jovovich. She did have some other rumored people that were potential for her. One was Elizabeth Berkley.
Oh my God, no.
Well, Showgirls killed that big time because it came out around the same time, and all of a sudden she was just anathema in Hollywood for a while. But Julia Roberts was also considered. That would have been interesting.
That would have, yeah, that would have.
Because I picture her as being lanky, because, well, she's running around in nothing but bandages. Basically, she needs to be lanky.
Well, and also have that kind of like I don't want to say Bambi, but you know what I mean, like a fawn, like a delicate, fragile kind of.
I believe the adjective you're looking for is cultish.
Cultish, yes. Lanky. Yeah, there you go.
Newborn,
like that.
Yeah. Yearling,
Newborn,
whatever. Yeah.
Yes. A yearling. It's that movie where the guy from Moonlighting and the yearling do stuff. Yeah.
The newborn cult. All right. Well, it's appropriate that we're laughing. And next on my list is, of course, Ruby Rhod, played by Chris Tucker, who, if I'm not mistaken, is from Chamblee, Georgia, which is where I was born. And the only reason I know that is I think that my nephews went to high school with him.
Really?
Yeah. Two of my brother's kids, Shane and Matt, I'm pretty sure went to high school with him. I think I've heard them talk about that. But before Chris Tucker, the original vision Luc Besson had was Prince. He wanted Prince in that part. But at one right, and I have a feeling that's why he's not in it, or he turned him down. Another person that cannot act that was considered is Lenny Kravitz, and I just don't know that would have worked.
No,
the one person that was considered that I think would have worked is Jamie Foxx. He was considered too, and we know he can do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's got the chops.
I could have seen that, but I don't know if he would have been as outrageous as. I mean, what made Chris Tucker work, I think, was him doing Chris Tucker, the same thing he does in all of his movies, which is he just rambles. He just goes at 20 miles an hour,
Right. Well, I'm just thinking of like when Jamie Foxx was on In Living Color and doing crazy stuff like Men on Film. And or Wanda, that female character he did. I could just see him being outrageous.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Luke Perry is in this film. No one was up for his role because it's very small.
Yeah.
And speaking of deaths, he died last year too, didn't he? Or the year before?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The General Monroe, played by Brian James, who we would be wrong not to mention, is our friend Wendell's one of his most hated actors. We mentioned that when we did our Blade Runner podcast. Guess who was considered for that role?
I do not know.
Kevin Costner. You should put crickets in there.
That was so unexpected.
Well, honestly, okay. I'm not a fan. I mean, I there are a few movies that Kevin Costner has done that I like, but I've never been a huge fan of his. So I like The Untouchables.
Me either.
Yeah,
Untouchables is good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, and I'm just mentioning this because actually no, there's two things. The voice of Finger is Vin Diesel. He was uncredited. No one else up for that role. And this one I'm just mentioning out of my own admiration. General Statert is John Neville, and he played the well-manicured man on The X-Files.
John Neville. Where do I know John Neville from?
Well, you've seen him in a million different things because he's a big character actor.
British.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. Wasn't he? Shoot. I'm trying to remember the movie.
He was in an X-Files movie. I mean, he was in the first X-Files movie, I think. And he did about 7 episodes.
It's tying back to Terry Jones, Munchausen, Baron Munchausen.
Oh yeah. He is in that. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. That's where I remember him from. I mean, but
because he's wearing one of those like old wigs, one of those powdered wigs or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John
you're right.
Neville. Yeah, that's a good one. I'd forgotten that one.
Yeah, and he's not got a large part, but I just had to point out that he was in it because I love the X-Files. So there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I have on casting of this crazy film. Do you want to talk about maybe some standout scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Well, performance-wise, we've said we like. I really like all of the performances in this. But I really like Milla Jovovich because I don't like her in certain other movies. Like she's the lead in all the Resident Evil movies, and I don't think she's very good in any of them. And I really can't remember another movie that she.
Well, that's because those movies aren't that good.
Well, true.
I mean, you're coming from somebody. I mean, this is coming from somebody who loves zombies, and I don't particularly care for those movies at all.
Yeah, they try to take the action adventure, I guess, side of zombie
video
world
game
and the video game, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I liked about Resident Evil the game was that it was scary. It was a scary survival game, and when they made the movie, I was like, this isn't scary. This is like action adventure after action adventure, and it's not very good. But I do like her in this movie a lot, and I think she and Willis definitely have great chemistry together.
Mm-hmm. I love the whole scene where she's born and escapes, when she's like dealing with being in the plexiglass and stuff. That was amazing. Yeah.
Yes, and the guy keeps calling her perfect. You know, I'm going, well, if she's perfect, couldn't she get out of the tube? Okay, never mind. Don't be a critic. But let's see. I love almost every scene that Zorg is in. I just like the way Oldman just chews the furniture and goes crazy. But I guess if I'm talking about ones I remember, I really like the scene where he is with the priest. Is it with Ian Holm's character? And he's talking about, it kind of like sums up the theme of the movie, but he's doing the big thing about chaos and the glass and everything else. I like the way that scene is done because it's that almost like you're having a scene from The Godfather because you're afraid he's just going to go crazy at any moment and kill everybody in the room or something. Mm-hmm.
We talked about it being a very visual movie. The first thing visually that I remember from this is the swelling planet-like thing coming after them at the beginning. That, to me, was pretty impressive and scary.
See, my first visual, I think, from what I remember, that I first went, wow, this is definitely a different movie, and I like the visuals, was the design of the aliens at the very beginning. Because the very beginning is like a prologue. It takes place in like ancient Egypt or something or whatever.
Right.
Not ancient Egypt, but like Egyptology.
It's an archaeological dig. It's 1914.
Yeah. 1914, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, those aliens look so cool. With the funky heads, and then the way the little key comes out of the finger, and just they're great, big and round, and kind of wobbly aliens, but they have these little articulated head things. I mean, I just thought, okay, that is just cool design.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
then
like
when
something
they got
you would see in the original Star Wars bar. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, just a very unique looking alien. Yeah.
Yes, I could definitely see it, and that's kind of the impression I got from it. And then when they get to, you know, they jump 300 or so years in the future or whatever, and you suddenly get a very utilitarian look at Earth. But yeah, the scene where the evil rises is great.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And then also another scene visually that stands out to me is when Jovovich goes out the window and falls into Willis's cab. All that traffic craziness is just it's just very memorable to me because you've never really seen that before. Actually, maybe a little bit, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it's just very unique. I mean, it's Blade Runner-esque in a way, but it's more busy.
Yeah, it's Blade Runner with the lights on,
right?
Thing. That was one of my keys. Even down to like the way his apartment is, even though it's a one-room kind of apartment, but the utilitarianism of everything, of the way the doors open and the different panels he's got for different stuff and all of that. It's very, very Blade Runner in its approach. But when I saw the flying cars, the first thing that came to mind was Star Wars. It was very. Once we're on Coruscant and they have all these cars flying everywhere, that sort of thing. That's what it reminded me of.
We would be remiss, probably not to mention the opera scene. That to me is kind of a standout in the film.
Definitely.
And from what I understand, most of them had not seen or heard this performance before they were there. So a lot of that reaction is real.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. Because and maybe it's because like you said, the director's girlfriend was an opera singer. So maybe
her
that's
name
why
is Mai Wen something.
So maybe that's why they put her in there. But her design, very Star Wars, reminds me of one of the Jedi girl aliens in Star Wars that was also in that same race or species is in the new Mandalorian movie or series. So that reminded me of.
There was something in an old Star Wars movie, and I cannot remember which one it was, that had an extended head like that, but it had very sharp teeth. But it was humanoid. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The guy that was Jabba's assistant was like that.
Yeah, that must be what I'm thinking of. Okay.
And the slave girl that Jabba had was like that. She had the two tentacles coming like out of her forehead, like hair, kind of thing, which is what my Wen looks like in it. But that whole scene on. I always want to call it flotsam, but it's not flotsam. It's like Folston?
It's Folsom, yeah. I want to say flotsam, too, because I love that word.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like they reversed two of the letters in it. It's like Folsom instead of flotsam.
But, yeah, that whole thing...
I can't help but think that was intentional, too.
A galactic cruise ship, kind of thing, which is, a very... very, very probable future for humans if we ever get that far. All of those scenes were cool. The design was great. I loved the stewardesses in it at the very beginning because it reminded me of 2001. Their design.
What was design with that whole stewardess scene? That's another one we should probably bring up too.
Okay. In what way? What do you mean?
Well, Ruby Rhod seems to be going down on her, and I guess that's okay. Maybe he's bisexual. I never got a straight vibe from that character at all, and I just thought, this is weird. Is he doing it with his phallic hair? I mean, what is he doing?
Maybe, yes. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with that. That was a very. I thought. Oh, okay. It must be a French movie. I don't get it. I don't know what's happening here.
That's it. That's going to be our excuse for things we don't understand from now on. Oh, it must be French.
Yeah. Must be French.
So that was another scene I meant to bring up.
I did like the designs. I did like, all the action pieces work. All of the, I like that whole chase sequence there, as crazy as it gets, it's very Die Hard, to me. Them being under the pool table and pushing it to get away from the guns and the whole.
Oh, when he jumps off that balcony, I mean that's almost the exact same shot from Die Hard. When he's going through the air, I was like, "Holy shit, it's McClane." Yeah, I mean, all you need is explosions behind him, and you got it.
Yeah. Which is great. I liked those designs too, but again, it reminded me of a Star Wars thing. The Mandalores or whatever, the kind of ogre-y looking pig look. I mean,
yeah, they did. It was very Star Wars Henson-esque, sort of Jim Henson-esque too. Because those things in the beginning reminded me a little bit of Jim Henson too. The
very much like Dark Crystal.
Yeah, because they move slow.
Yeah, they have that waddle kind of thing to them. Yeah, there's a lot of Henson feel to the design, the alien design in this. But then he'll do something just totally off the wall, like put a transmitter on a cockroach or something. Just weird stuff that you go, wait, is that really? That's an antenna on the back of a cockroach, really? Or when Zorg is being talked to by the evil, and he suddenly starts, bleeding from his skull, and you're going, why? What's causing that? I don't know why that is. A key for that one for me was Ian Holm in Alien, when he suddenly starts bleeding, sweating the milk or whatever, and you're going, what? Why is that? I don't understand what's happening. And that's exactly the way I felt in that scene with Zorg.
Yeah, that's what I said when I first saw this movie. I don't understand what's happening.
Well, Oldman the entire time is just out there. Just from his design to like that, everything's like a half costume, weird look to him. I mean, all the way through. So, yeah, I could understand why you would think, what is going on? Any other scenes jump out at you?
Not scenes at the moment. I did have a bit of trivia that I just happened to come across. Sure. One is that you were talking about makeup and the Mangalores looking like something out of Star Wars or Henson. I read that they wore goggles to save money on makeup, so they didn't have to make up their eyes. And then I also read that Gary Oldman's take on Zorg was a cross between Ross Perot and Bugs Bunny. I was like, maybe a little Foghorn and Leghorn in there too. Foghorn, Leghorn.
Yeah, that's what I hear more than Bugs Bunny.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
could be. I thought again, I'm not approaching this movie at all from a logic standpoint because it just throws that out pretty much at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I do like the overall arc. I like her being so innocent, Bruce is being her protector, the priest kind of adding the mythos and the story to it, and then going through everything to try to get to the puzzle at the end, which I've always liked the whole. It reminded me of a James Bond movie or even a game, at the end, this whole, we've got to activate the stones. Because the entire movie, they're trying to get these 4 stones, not knowing really what they are, what their purpose they are. It's just that they know if they use them, they'll defeat the evil.
And if they're in Mai Wen, is she an android?
Yeah. I thought that too. I thought, how are you walking around with those stones?
Those giant stones inside you, and him reaching up in there with his hand. I'm like, whoa.
And what would have happened if she hadn't been killed? Would she say, okay, can you just cut me open now to get these stones? I need to transfer them over to you.
Where's the bathroom?
She's like an intergalactic mule.
Yes.
For stones.
Yes. She's a stone mule.
A stone mule, yes. Yeah. But I like the ending and her being the final, the fifth element, and the fact that but it does end to me like a James Bond movie. It ends with them together in the chamber, and it reminded me. My key was the one where they actually do that, Moonraker, where they say what's Bond doing now? I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. So I mean,
that's the key I just wrote down, is that the ending is a Bond movie, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With the freeze frame. To me. Yeah. That's funny because it just occurred to me. Yeah, they end up, ending the movie with sex.
Well, as they should, with the two of them, of course.
Well, of course. That's really the main reason for watching this movie.
Right.
Multipass.
Let's see, what else? What about special effects? I'm trying to look through my notes and see if I have anything left over.
I have a ton of keys, but I don't have... Oh, I've got some awards. Not too many. It was nominated for Best Visual Effects as far as Oscars, but it won Best Visual Effects for BAFTA, the British version of Oscars.
Good.
And then it was nominated for a slew of small things, but those were the only two big ones. So, not many awards there.
Trying to think of just looking at my notes. No, I think that's mostly all mine.
Okay.
That I have.
So I guess we're venturing into Keyland.
Keyland. Keydom.
Yes, for all you key holders out there, here they come.
I've been throwing a bunch already.
Yeah, me too. We just mentioned Bond. You mentioned Star Wars several times. I wrote this down from some trivia. Apparently, from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the Mandalore masks were recycled for Nemodians.
Really?
I don't remember any of those three Star Wars movies, 1, 2, and 3. But whatever a Nemodian is, its mask was a recycled Mandalore.
Interesting. I've got Heavy Metal, of course, and I've got Total Recall. This movie reminds me a lot in places. It has a lot of... I think Total Recall was influenced a lot by this movie, or vice versa.
I think it'd be vice versa. This came out after.
Yeah. Just an overall design of creating a different world and creating this whole... I think they do it better here. I think this is... I have Blade Runner, of course, because I think this is also one of the better realized futuristic views in a science fiction movie. Just all the way through. From the way they design their vehicles to their weapons to
you're talking about world building. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, speaking of worlds, science fiction writer Terry Pratchett spoofed this title in his Discworld series with a novel called The Fifth Elephant.
Okay.
I found that kind of interesting. I don't know anything about Terry Pratchett, but I'm sure if you're a science fiction reader, you do, because that name's been around for a while.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that the world building reminded you of Blade Runner. Apparently, they wanted the world building to remind you more of RoboCop. The helmets for the police officers resemble the RoboCop ones that almost cover the face.
Yep, I can see that. Also, Judge Dredd.
And when they realized it, they went back and dubbed a line that had originally said, "Thank you for your help," to "Thank you for your cooperation."
Oh,
I thought that was
just
interesting.
Taking it directly from RoboCop, yeah.
Right.
And that's so two Paul Verhovens right there. Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
And I already mentioned Alien as far as having a Dallas in it as well. So that was another one of my
that was a good
keys.
one. I mentioned Moonlighting already. I mentioned Die Hard already. Trying to.
I can go a little old school for you.
Do that.
We were talking about the production design of the traffic and the city being busy like Blade Runner in the daylight. It reminded me of Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Very tall,
I can see that.
With lots of movement. So I was thinking he may have been inspired by that. I also can't help but look at Gary Oldman and think of Ming the Merciless. Even though it's a silly version, he just reminded me of Ming the Merciless for some reason. A lot of this reminded me of Flash Gordon. The costuming, like Bruce running around in that orange tank top. I don't know. There's just a heavy Flash Gordon vibe going on with this. Like this could have been serialized or made into a cinematic universe, like I mentioned earlier.
That's very true. I could see that, and I hadn't thought of that before. But I think you're very right on there, because that's that whole version of Flash was very glitzy, very colorful, very shiny with everything, and I could see that in this as well. Yeah, you're right. And definitely the Ming bit, whether it's from the whether it's from the way the hairstyle was, or the funky, it's not a goatee, it's just a lip thing, whatever hair. Yeah,
right, a soul patch.
A soul patch, okay.
Or whatever, yeah.
All right. Yep.
And I can give you a Disney key.
Oh, please. What is entertainment without Disney? Come on.
Buzz Lightyear used to battle the evil Emperor Zorg.
Zerg, yes.
With a U.
You
got Zerg and you got
right.
Zorg. And I believe Toy Story came out before this movie. I think the first one did.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this was 97. So this was definitely later on, even in Besson's career.
Leeloo, and we talked about this in another film we've done. I cannot remember. Oh, you know what? It was in The Matrix. But Leeloo, when she's fighting in this one, does the Bruce Lee hand gesture with the fingers.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Keanu does in Matrix. So
well, and I have I have the learn everything from television cliche, which is in a lot of science fiction movies where they, whoever the new person is, the learn everything from television cliche. Okay. So, when she goes to the priest, when she wakes up, she's watching the television, and that's how she learns English, and that's how she learns, and then later on she learns about war that way, through the montage and all that. So
yeah.
So it's like our only way to communicate is through television.
Wasn't Starman that way too? I think Starman was that way. It's been a long time since I saw that, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of those that did that.
A lot of the Egyptian stuff reminded me of Stargate.
Yeah, it really reminded me of Stargate when they cut to the exterior shot and the aliens came. And their ship like dwarfs the pyramids. It's so massively huge. And I was going, okay, that is so Stargate. Yep.
Yeah. And then when I saw the swelling evil headed toward Earth, I couldn't help but think of Armageddon, where Bruce Willis was waiting for another big rock to hit the Earth.
Yeah.
So that's another one there.
Perfect.
And then actually that may be it. We mentioned the Bond sex at the end. You mentioned Total Recall. That may be it. I may be out of keys.
Yeah, I mean, Besson seems to really like these powerful female action women kind of thing, because he's done, he did the Professional, he did La Femme Nikita, he did this, he's done Lucy, which is with Scarlett Johansson.
Right. I've not seen that.
And then Valerian has, even though it's a duo, it's a guy and a girl, partnership. The girl in it is, a big action hero type. You haven't seen Lucy? Lucy's interesting. I don't know if I could totally recommend it, but it's got some interesting stuff to it.
I honestly don't know if I've seen another Luc Besson movie. I really don't think I have, because I was looking through them.
If you want something you've seen Transporter. You've seen all of those.
That's right. I have seen those. And he did a series on that too, like a television series or something.
Yeah. Well, and he did a television series on La Femme Nikita too, which was his movie.
Oh, okay.
But he
likes women running around kicking ass in very little clothing.
Yes, okay. I would hope so. It's a French thing, maybe. But yeah, if you want to watch something similar to this in kind of style and storytelling and everything, look at Valerian. Because I think it's a flawed masterpiece kind of movie. It could have been really good, but he cast 2 leads in it that are actually terrible. As far as they have no chemistry themselves. I mean, to be, a couple in it. And so that kind of takes away from it. But the design in that movie is really cool. So, and the story overall is good. But it's another one of those, you've got to find the secret quest to save the universe kind of stories. But There we go. We just finished The Fifth Element.
Yeah, I think my pockets are empty. My keys are out. If I had to recommend this movie, I would recommend it purely on sex appeal of Milla Jovovich, or whatever her name is, and Big Bruce Willis. However, there are some fantastical elements that are fun along the way. So it is titillating to the eyes in more than one way.
Yep.
What would you say?
I would definitely agree with that. And I would also think, as a fantasy science fiction film, it's a typical good ride. It's what people used to call popcorn movie.
Yeah.
Just check your brain at the door and just enjoy the ride, because it's got good action, it's got good design, it's got opera, so it's got a little bit of everything, and it's got a lot of French to it, lots of French stuff. So there you go.
All right. Well, David, I guess we will tune out for now, but
and
we'd like to
tune back in next time.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to everybody. Please rate, like, and or review us on your podcast app podcast platform of choice, and check out our Patreon channel. We've got a lot of cool extra stuff over there. So
please do. We'd love it.
Until next week, we'll see you, David.
All right, buddy.
All right, bye.